So are you an optimist? Do you expect that good things will happen? Are you a glass half full kind of person? The pressure to be positive has never been greater. Positive psychology has become a happy, smiling juggernaut, spawning billion-dollar book sales and a lucrative coaching industry aimed at making the world more optimistic. And it's working. Major corporations now hire happiness experts. The US Army currently trains its soldiers in positive thinking. In the UK, they teach optimism in schools. And all across the world, government policy advisors have begun talking about the happiness index as a rival to GDP. The unquestioned view is that optimism is good, pessimism is bad. If you search Amazon for books on negative thinking, almost all of them are negative, assuming that pessimism is something to be cured of, like a disease. But what if our assumptions about optimism are wrong? Last week, my daughter took this photograph in the forest near our home. As you can see, it's beautiful at this time of the year. The snow is crisp, the air is pure. But should I be afraid that hiding somewhere in these woods is a dangerous bear woken early from hibernation? Or is this just a negative thought, spoiling an otherwise pleasant walk in the woods? Faced with this exact scenario, our ancestors could make one of two mistakes. Mistake number one, they could think that there was a bear in the woods when actually there wasn't one. Or mistake number two, they could think that there wasn't a bear in the woods when actually there was one. The cost of making the first mistake was needless anxiety, endless hours of unnecessary stress. The cost of making the second mistake was death. This is why when you study history, you never ever read of the tribe of optimists. They died. Being pessimistic, expecting the worst, was what gave our ancestors an edge. It kept them alive. It gave them a 1% over their happy, soon-to-be extinct friends. We know that when we feel happy, we get a kick of the brain's happy drug, oxytocin. This is why feeling happy feels happy. However, studies have shown that the downside of oxytocin is that it reduces our ability to identify threats. In 2011, social psychologist Joseph Forgas conducted an experiment at the University of New South Wales in which people were divided into two groups, according to whether they were in a good mood or a bad mood, whether their glass was half full or half empty. They were then asked to judge the truth of certain urban myths, such as, do power lines cause cancer? Did the CIA murder Kennedy? And they discovered that the happy people were far more gullible than their gloomy counterparts. And that in contrast, those unencumbered by happiness and optimism were far less likely to make errors of judgment. It seems that the happier and more optimistic you are, the less able you are to identify threats, to spot dangers, and to pick up on falsehoods. This is why when you Netflix and chill, an innocent cuddle that makes you feel happy sometimes leads to behaviour that you later regret, and it totally wasn't your fault. It was just the oxytocin. If you were in a bad mood, it would never have happened. In 2006, two professors of finance from Duke University, Manju Puri and David Robertson, studied the financial choices of extreme optimists. They discovered that optimists are more prone to reckless behaviour than their even more slightly more pessimistic friends. They concluded that optimists work fewer hours, save less money, and are less likely to pay their credit cards. And then they said, check this out, a little optimism may be beneficial, but too much can lead to some really bad economic choices. So here you have two, I would imagine, normally circumspect professors of a, let's face it, boring subject like finance, using some rather flowery vocabulary. We're now saying that optimism can lead to not just bad, but really bad economic choices. So should it concern us then that the happiness industry's #1 customer is corporate North America? Given that an often underreported cause of the financial meltdown in 2008 was that business culture was overly optimistic and key decision makers were far too positive. In a culture where negativity and failure were taboo subjects, no one saw or was allowed to see the bear hiding in the woods. Think about it. If the culture at your work is aggressively positive, and if optimism and happiness are mandatory, and negativity is forbidden, and you're not allowed to be the proverbial rain cloud, you dare not in that environment put up your hand and say, I've got a really bad feeling about this. I don't think it'll work, and we probably shouldn't do it. When sometimes that's exactly what you should do. How many hundreds of billions of dollars has been wiped off the value of major corporations because key decision makers insisted on positivity and forbade negativity? How many major corporations have ceased to exist because that was so? How many new startups have been unsuccessful because the entrepreneurs were wearing rose-tinted spectacles and didn't see the danger? We know that only 3 out of every 10 new businesses survive the first 5 years. And yet, curiously, 81% of entrepreneurs give themselves a better than 7 in 10 chance of success. It seems that too many people are feeling too happy, and they're too positive, and their positive optimism is making them blind to danger. And this is a problem. Take Show Me as an example. This was a failed attempt by the 2 Canadian media giants, Rogers and Shaw, to compete with Netflix. Bold, bold move. When they finally admitted defeat in 2016, the general manager of Show Me said something fascinating. He said the business was more challenging to operate than we expected. This makes me wonder, what exactly was it they expected? And the thing that fascinates me about this guy is he is super smart. Long track record of success. Degree in finance from Stanford, an MBA from Harvard. And yet in less than 5 minutes, my 12-year-old son saw a bear hiding in the woods that the teams of smart, media-savvy geniuses at 2 of Canada's most successful corporations completely missed. When Show Me launched in 2014, my son, like everyone else, took a look to see if it was any good. And after literally minutes of painstakingly detailed research, emphatically declared, "Dad, this is rubbish. No way this is going to work." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Look, it's got less content than Netflix. It doesn't have any of the good shows. Why would we pay for this when we're already paying for Netflix?" Good question. But an even bigger question is, why did any of the super smart, tuned-in people at 2 of Canada's biggest, most successful companies seriously think that a streaming service that hit the market 7 years after their competitor with less content for the same price was going to work, when obviously it wasn't? This was one bear that wasn't even hiding in the woods. It was there in all its scary detail for the world to see, and yet they didn't see it. Why not? One possible explanation is that optimism made them overestimate their chances of success and underestimate at best the possibilities and the dangers of failure. And here's the thing. The more success you've had in the past, The more proven your track record is, the more wins you've got under your belt, the more likely you are to fall into this trap. This is why the hugely successful North American auto industry didn't take the threat of small, cheap imports from Japan seriously until it was too late. This is why when the hugely successful Blockbuster Video were offered the chance to buy Netflix, they laughed it out of the room. They actually laughed. And in this much time, they went from being a global player in the movie rental business with thousands of stores worldwide, with a market share that was so big that going to Blockbuster was a key part of every family's Friday and Saturday night. They went from that in this much time to extinction. Optimists draw way too much confidence and way too much security from yesterday's successes, but pessimists are wired differently. They're always worrying about what might go wrong next, about the dangers of the next challenge, and they never let the vision of standing on the mountaintop make them lose sight of the dangers involved in getting there. So let's say that you're invited to give an important presentation at your work, and it matters to you. Your boss will be there, the directors will be there, you need it to go well. And let's say you approach that presentation with optimism, applying a few of the tricks you learned from positive psychology. So you visualize yourself doing an amazing job. In your imagination, you can picture your audience hanging upon your every word. In your mind's eye, you can hear the thunderous applause when they finish. And you can almost feel your boss's hand pat you on the shoulder as she says, "Good job, let's have lunch and talk about your promotion." If you approach your presentation with that level of optimism, it may give you confidence. That is true. But it is equally true that it may give you overconfidence. And your overconfidence may cause you to underprepare and take success for granted and overlook many of the things that could go wrong. And as we pessimists will tell you, there are many things that could go wrong. You could lose the USB that's got your slides. 5 minutes before your presentation, you could spill coffee on your notes. Your battery could run out of power. Your laptop could crash. It's a nightmare. But none of that matters to the pessimist, because he saw those bears hiding in the woods a long time ago. And he didn't just prepare, he over-prepared. When he was putting his slides on a USB, he made 2 extra copies, one for his briefcase, one for his top pocket. When he printed out his notes, he made a spare copy and he put that spare copy in a plastic folder. Coffee, no problem. He made sure that battery was charged, and just to be extra sure, he brought a backup laptop, because you can never over-prepare. And that's the edge, that's the advantage that pessimism gives you. And that's why pessimists are often still standing, still surviving, and still thriving, long after their happy counterparts have gone into extinction. To speak in praise of pessimism is not to say that it's going to rain. It's just to say that this is life, and it can rain. And it quite often does. And umbrellas are a lot cheaper than pneumonia. And that's why the world needs more pessimists. I thank you.